Hey guys, welcome to Accompaniment for the month of January. Happy New Year to you all. Thanks for sticking with me, those of you who were with me last month, and welcome to any new patrons. So for accompaniment, we're going to look at a tune called Silver Spear that you just heard a moment ago. It is a reel in D major. I picked this tune for a couple of reasons. First of all, a lot of you guys probably know the tune already, and if you don't, it's a very simple and fun tune, easy to pick up, kind of easy to get the gist of how it goes. And another reason I picked the tune is that it has a particular melodic quality that is going to be useful for some of the techniques that I'm going to try to teach you today. So before we do anything else, I wanted to have you guys try something creative, something a little bit improvisatory, because that's one of the pillars of this course, accompaniment, that I talked about in my intro video, is embracing creativity and improvisation. So I want to, before we discuss anything or analyze, I want you to just grab your chord instrument, whether it be your piano, your bouzouki, your guitar, your harpsichord, your theorbo, your ancient Greek lyre, whatever it may be. And I'm going to play the tune at a medium tempo, and I want you to just play whatever chords come to mind. Of course, I'll give you some hints. Of course, it's in D major, so the main chords you're going to be looking at are D major. G major will be another go-to. Maybe a touch of A major. Maybe throw that in at the end of a phrase before a final D. And then another good one to look out for would be B minor. But I won't say anything else. Play as your heart guides you. Follow your heart. So here we go. If you need to go grab your instrument, pause the video, go grab that thing, and then come on back. Okay, so here we go. We'll slow it down. We'll do it nice and relaxed so you can really kind of focus on what you're doing. A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, ready, go. All right, how did it feel? That was once through the tune at a pretty, I would say, medium to medium slow. How would you like your tune done? Medium, please. So anyway, that was a fairly relaxed tempo. So I hope that you're able to, even if you can tell that you're not hitting the most ingenious chords, I hope that you're able to enjoy that feeling. And hopefully you're getting this sense of, hey, a lot of times I'm kind of hitting random chords and they sound pretty legit, which is good. I want you to enjoy that and kind of embrace that, because there definitely is that element of, not every part of music has to be intimately analyzed and thought out and sort of planned out beforehand. There is that element of spontaneity that makes music making so special. So anyway, I'd like to now dive in and actually show you a couple different ways to accompany the tune and talk about how they differ from each other. So the very first thing that I wanted to note, pun intended, is in the melody. So the first thing you want to do when you're learning how to accompany a tune is make sure that you know the melody, make sure that you can sing it, and most importantly, I'm going to teach you how to find target notes. Okay, so the melody of Silver Spear is in D major, but it primarily focuses on the notes from the D major pentatonic scale. So that scale is D, E, F sharp. Skip over G. We're going to have A and B. So it's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 out of the major scale. Now, let's take a look at what chords from D major could sound good under those notes. Okay, so let's see. Well, the note D was the first note. Obvious choice would be the D chord. You probably figured that out. Another good choice would be B minor, right? Because D is the third of the B minor chord. And the other choice would be G, right? In that case, D is the fifth of that chord. Now, let's try some other ones. What about E minor? Ooh, yeah, kind of lush, right? Kind of nice sounding. What else do we have? Technically, you've got an F sharp minor in this key. F sharp, A, and C sharp are in the key signature. Let's see what that sounds like. That's a little bit interesting. You can tell that has a very specific sound. I'm going to go ahead and say that would not be one of our standard choices. That would be more of if you have a really good reason to do that chord, then go ahead and do it. Very crunchy, right? And then the last one would be A major. We haven't done that yet. Again, I'm going to put that in that same category where I wouldn't use that. I wouldn't use an A chord under the D note unless you have a particularly good reason to. And we'll get to that later. We will get to that later. There are these reasons. But strictly vertically speaking, so one of the themes of the today's lesson is about vertical versus horizontal. Right now, we're just analyzing if we just take a cross section of the tune, so we're just looking at one melody note, what sounds good underneath that, just in that one moment, considered as one, block of sound, not going from left to right. So right now we're doing a vertical analysis of the different notes present in Silver Spear. So for the D note, we had D, B minor, we had G, E minor was kind of nice, F sharp minor and A were kind of meh, but we'll talk about those a bit later. Don't do diminished chords. In other words, don't do the C sharp diminished, because that does exist in the key of D. C sharp, E, G. Just don't. And if you want to talk about why, give me a call on the telephone and we'll chat about it. But anyway, don't do that. Now let's take a look at the E note. Okay, so E, obviously E minor would be a classic example that would fit under there. A major is a valid chord. Remember, I'm only choosing chords in the key of D, so using two sharps, F sharp and C sharp, in case that wasn't clear. So we had E minor, A. Let's try F sharp minor. Not bad. That forms a minor seventh. When you add the E over the F sharp minor, that gives you a minor seventh. Not bad. What about E over the G chord? Kind of nice. Kind of a pleasant sound. That's going to give you a major sixth sound. Da 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 da. Right? Totally acceptable. What else we got? How about E over D? I would say fair. It's a little jazzy. It's a ninth, but totally cool. So I'm not gonna. Maybe I shouldn't spend all this time, but basically, you can continue this process with the other notes of the pentatonic scale. So F sharp, you've got. You've got all these chords. I think I just played all 7 available chords. that sound pretty decent underneath the F sharp. And then same thing with the A. So watch this. D major, E minor, F sharp minor, G. That's G under the A. A, of course, B minor. I'll tell you what, I'll even do a C sharp diminished. Not bad, right? So again, we have these very flexible notes where almost anything you do is going to, at least vertically speaking, sound relatively presentable. B, same thing's going to happen. Not bad, not bad, not bad, a bit jazzy, perfectly fine. Again, also acceptable. I like that one. And even this one. If you resolve it right, it works. So anyway, that's a quick overview of why the pentatonic scale makes accompaniment so easy. Because the pentatonic scale doesn't have any of these troublesome notes that sort of hem you in and force you to choose a certain chord. It's very, very flexible. So, for instance, let me give you an example. I'm going to attempt to play the tune in my right hand, and I'll play some chords in the left hand, and I'm going to try to just sort of go almost like I'm doing, I'm just picking different paints off of a palette, and I'm just sort of, liberally applying them to this canvas. Oh, apparently I'm bleeding. Well, we'll have to deal with that later. So, here we go. Right? Now, you might have noticed there were actually a couple of points in there. Well, for those of you who are a little bit more critical, you might have noticed there were one or two points that didn't sound that amazing in there. And that is because the melody actually strayed away from the pentatonic scale, and I wasn't quite prepared for that to happen, and so I didn't have the best chord picked out for that particular moment, and so it didn't sound that amazing. But, so, the moral of the story is, if you can identify the pentatonic aspects of the tune you're dealing with, those are areas where you can be a little more free and play around with pretty much any different chord. But the notes that are not in that pentatonic collection, we're going to need to be a little bit more careful. So let's address that next. The note that we skipped over primarily was G, because we did D, E, F sharp, A, and B. We did not talk about G because that's not part of that pentatonic collection. So what do we do if we're in D major and we have a G in the melody? Well, don't panic. That's the first thing. Let's listen to a couple different chords under G. So here's the key of D. Da. Now here's the G. Da. Let's listen to the D chord first. It definitely does not work. I'm going to go ahead and say there's very few. You would need a very special situation to need to do that. By the way, if you ever do need to do that, just don't play the third in the D major chord, that note being F sharp. Just don't play that, because now the G note can kind of take the place of the F sharp instead. So you get that instead of that extra crunch. I know that crunch can be good. I mean, I love Captain Crunch as much as the next guy. But for Irish music, we're going for some of the more simple sounds first. So anyway, D doesn't really work. Let's try B minor. Same problem. It has that F sharp clash. Don't do B minor. Let's try A. So here's where it's a matter of taste. I don't like A major under G for Irish music because it's a dominant chord. it's a little too classical. It's a little too jazz. It's a little bit too. It sort of narrows you to like certain time periods and styles of music. A dominant chord. It also has that tritone, C sharp to G in this case. So it's a little more tense. So I'm not saying that you can't use that sound, but that would be kind of further down your list. The first few things you want to look for are open, a little bit more sort of free, open kind of sounds. Think wind chimes, right? Wind chimes are always tuned to pentatonic scales. Did you know that? Every single one I've ever seen, they're always like this. You're not going to get a wind chime that goes... I mean, that would be kind of cool. That would be kind of neat. So anyway, A under the G is going to give you a dominant chord. It's a little too specific. It really, that chord can only resolve one way. And so that doesn't allow you to be free and kind of just, go with the flow. So no D, no B minor, no A. Let's try F sharp minor. Oh God, no. There's one time once in the history of music that I can think of that somebody did that exact harmony and I actually liked it. And I'll tell you what it was. It was simply having, right there. Did you hear that? A wonderful, right? A wonderful Christmas time. Check it out. Simply having. And it works because of the horizontal component, which we'll get to later. Right now, we're still on vertical. So, anyhow, D is out, B minor is out, A is out, F sharp minor is out. What the heck are we going to do? Well, most of you were probably thinking, why doesn't he just play a G chord under the G? And yeah, well, that's what we're going to do. So when you get the G, you really have to play the G chord. The only other option is one of my personal favorites, the relative minor of G, which is going to be E minor. Of course, that gives us that deeper, a little bit more lush kind of, I think kind of more melancholic or nostalgic kind of sound. Okay, so extrapolating to in a more general sense, we're talking about the fourth note of a major scale. That is your treble note. That's the most important note to listen for if you are playing accompaniment in an Irish style. Most of the time, if you're playing in a major key, you can do whatever the heck you want, unless you hear that fourth, especially on a downbeat. Actually, I should clarify, on a downbeat. Passing tone doesn't matter. Nobody cares about that. But if you have a 4 landing on the downbeat, so in a real yup da one of those beats, da 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 yup da, if one of those is a fourth, you have to match that with either the 2 chord or the 4 chord. In this case, the 4 chord was G, the 2 chord was E, right? E minor. So let's take a look at Silver Spear. Where does it come up? Now, try to use your ears. Hopefully, you can look at sheet music if you want, but try to use your ears and listen. Do you hear it up there? There's that tension. I'll play the chords behind it to show you what I mean. Sorry. Hear how it has to resolve? The 4 da 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 has to go 4 3. Now, watch what happens if I play. So what I did was I did E minor underneath that G at the top of the melody. Watch what happens if I don't play, if I choose a different chord there. It sounds really bad. Ready? Oh my goodness. Please don't do that. That was the D chord. That's an example where, I'm playing accompaniment at a session. I don't really know the tune, but I kind of am figuring, it's in D major. I can probably just play a D chord. If you're not listening for these treble notes, or target notes, I'll call them, like that G, it's not going to work. It's not going to go well for you. There will be consequences. So, no. Yes. Ding. Or, that's acceptable. Or, right? Again, we talked about the A under the G. I'll accept that, but you have to resolve it like that. Da 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 da. And it's not very stylistically Irish, honestly. Just forget I even said that. Go for E minor or G. Okay? So listen to how it's going to sound, especially when we get up to the boodala da ba da. All right, here we go. You hear that? You have to hit that chord correctly.
I couldn't think of a more horrible job if I wanted to. And you have to do it. You have to, or I'll fire you. Do you understand?
So this technique, I'm calling this target note approach, which is, it's a quick and dirty approach where basically if you're in a mostly pentatonic setting, do whatever the heck you want, and then if you hear that fourth, do, re, mi, fa, 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 fa. If you hear that fourth, you got to incorporate the 2 chord or the 4 chord. The nice thing about Irish tunes is they usually will do that fourth in sort of a predictable place. A lot of times it'll be, let's see, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. It was in the 7th measure, so kind of like the climax. You've got kind of a bunch of very neutral stuff near the beginning, and then typically there's like one final crest before the 8th measure is usually like a relaxing measure. Oh, by the way, real quick, have you guys heard of arsis and thesis? This is really cool, Greek terms that they use in Gregorian chant and other things. Basically, arsis is any movement that's sort of gathering tension or a musical gesture that is becoming more tense. Usually it has to do with increasing in pitch or, adding notes or perhaps like density, like more notes per measure or something. And then a thesis is a relaxing gesture. So we have this arsis in the 7th measure, and then the final 8th measure is the thesis. So anyway, let's talk about the chords we can do for the whole A section. So we're going to start on D major. Let me turn that volume down a little bit. So D major. Now, what are we going to do? Here's where we get into we're going to talk about some horizontal considerations. So thus far, we've just analyzed vertically, meaning you look at the note that's literally happening in the melody at this exact moment, and then you talk about which triads from my key actually sound okay underneath that note if you were to hold it out, or whatever it may be. So that's that's only half of the story. The other half is horizontal. And what I mean by that is you have to look at where is the melody going, and as a consequence of that, where do you need to be going with your chord from left to right. So, for instance, there's a lot of vertical chords that would sound great vertically that make no sense when you line them up left to right. Like, here's an example. Let's see. How about that actually sounded kind of cool. Let me try again. I'm going to try to make it even worse. Hold on a second. Okay, so it wasn't horrible, right? It wasn't terrible because all the chords technically sounded good, at least under the note that they fell under, each one respectively. But there was no line in the left hand there. So we've done our vertical homework. Now we have to do our horizontal homework. Now, did you hear that line in the left hand? That's horizontal, right? Now, what you're probably wondering, what is this guy talking about? How do I know if my line is good or not? Well, stepwise motion is always a good idea. But so there's two things to consider. Literal stepwise motion in the bass is always nice. So D, E, F, G, etc., etc. But then you also have these inner voices that we usually don't think about when, you're just a guitar player. You're just thinking about the roots, right? You're just thinking about, I'm playing a G chord, I'm playing an A chord. You're not thinking about the Bs and the C sharps that are going on at the same time in the middle of those chords. But there's also voice leading and stepwise motion to be had there. So for instance, not only do we have these sort of bass stepwise motions, but you also want to think about what we would call cadences. So cadences are like ending formulas that usually they're little chord formulas that would come at the end of a phrase, either like a 4 or an 8 bar phrase. So, of course, the most famous cadence is the authentic cadence, which is 5-1. Now, 5-1 is not stepwise in the bass, so that's not what I'm talking about in terms of the stepwise motion. Instead, it has stepwise motion in one of the inner voices from T, Do. It's the third of the 5 resolving to the 1 of the 1. So, Ti, Do. So that's a horizontal component that may not show up in the literal bass line, but it's in the interior of the chord. So when I say horizontal, I don't mean you have to play literally stepwise in your bass every single time, but there should be some, if you're going for this horizontal approach, there should be some continuity, whether it be in the bass note of the chord or one of the interior voices. So that cadence is a perfect example. Now, let's roll with that cadence and add something before it. So right now we have a dominant, A. That's the 5 chord. We have our dominant, and then we have our tonic. That's an authentic cadence. 5-1. We can beef it up a little bit by adding a subdominant before it. So this is a classic progression. Subdominant, dominant, tonic. Also known as 4-5-1. Okay? So G, A, D in this case. Notice I'm going, the G has the D note in it. That's Do, and then the A has the C sharp, which is T, and then the D has the D. So you get this nice line of Do, Ti, Do, right? Now, that's a nice horizontal piece of, of chord, a piece of chord, what am I trying to say? That's a nice little horizontal chord progression right there. Wow, I'm going insane. Anyway, let's see if we can put that under one of these pentatonic situations and see if it might not sound pretty good. Let's see. So what I'm starting out with here is just the moving by steps in the bass. Now how about right there at the end? G chord, A chord, D chord. That's our cadential formula that we talked about, G, A, D. That's a great formula to put at the end of a 4 or 8 bar phrase, right? So, of course, the D lands on the beginning of the next phrase. Okay, check it out. Hear it there? Right? That's a perfect way to set up the new phrase, the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th bars. It helps give the tune structure, right? So the tune by itself, it does have some inherent structure, but when you're the accompanist, when you're the accompanist, you definitely want to highlight these 2, 4, and 8 bar phrases. So there is an element of freedom, but you also need to sort of show the logical structure of the tune. So far we have D, E minor. What I'm doing here is actually D over F sharp. I'm not doing the F sharp minor. It's a little too dark. I'm doing D over F sharp, which is just an inversion. And then G. So that was my opening little stepwise thing. Now, how am I allowed to do that? Well, again, it goes back to the thing I said earlier. Pentatonic scale, you can pretty much do whatever you want. So I can just do this if I want to. And there's nothing you can do about it. And then I'm going to advocate going, so D, E minor, D over F sharp, G, D over F sharp again, B minor. All right, now why did I do that? That's another example of a stepwise motion that is in the interior of the chord. It's not in the bass. So the bass is moving by a 4th, right? But remember, anytime you're moving by a 4th or a 5th in the bass, there's probably some stepwise motion going on in the upper part of the chord because of the way that chords are constructed. So like from a G chord to a C chord, obviously you have a common tone there. From G to D, you have a common tone. Anytime you're moving by a 4th or a 5th, there's going to be a common tone in the upper part of the chord. So same thing here. If we're going from D over F sharp to B minor, there's actually 2 common tones, the D and the F sharp. And I wanted to do that because I hadn't done that chord yet. So it's kind of, it's almost like you're filling in the missing puzzle piece. Because we did D, E, F sharp, G, F sharp. Now the ear wants to hear B minor. It's just that classic chord that you haven't heard yet. Before our cadential formula, G, A. Then we're starting over. All right, so and of course, a valid substitute for the G chord before the A would be E minor. That's another kind of subdominant, is the 2 chord. Check it out. Right? A little more depth. A little more depth there. Okay. So get out your instrument and let's actually practice that together. And of course, you can practice it after the video as many times as you want. But once again, it's going to be D, E minor, D over F sharp. If that throws you off, don't worry about it. Just do another D. But if you've got D over F sharp, if you're a guitar player, you'll just you can hook your thumb around the back, or you can use your index finger and then just sort of abandon some of the other frets. If you're a pianist, you should know how to do that. So D, E minor, D over F sharp, G, back to D over F sharp, B minor, G, A, and then land on D. That's a great way to get started on the A section. So let's try it together. So get your axe out. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty nice, huh? I'll give you one more shot at it. 1, 2, ready, go. And fun fact, you can absolutely do the same thing in the next 4 measures. The difference is we're going to need to listen for that target note. So, so far, harmless stuff. Oh, there is one note that goes out of the pentatonic scale there. It's the 7th, because we have da di ba do da da. That's the C sharp. It's not on the downbeat. Don't worry about it. That doesn't count as a real diversion or divergence from the pentatonic scale. What we're looking for is something on the downbeat. So we're looking for either a G or a C sharp. So here we go. First 4 measures, we're all good. Hear that? Hear that tension? Da, na, na. It's that feeling, it needs to resolve. It needs to go to that F sharp. The rest of the tune is kind of just more floaty. It's more free, more open. But then when you hear that note, you know that it has to have that harmony under it. So for measures 5 through 8, let's try to apply. We'll start off with our same stuff, but then when we get there, we're going to need to do. We're going to need to match that G with either a G or an E minor. So here we go. That sounds pretty cool. Let's try something else. That was an example where I prioritized, what's it called? Stepwise motion in the bass. So that time, for the first, measure or so where we had the pentatonic stuff, I decided I wanted to go, I call that the Les Mis, right? Beautiful song. I mean, 70% of the songs in Les Mis do that exact same thing. Don't get me wrong, I love the musical, but they do kind of overuse that one progression. But anyway, yeah, it's starting on the tonic, going down stepwise till you get to that 4 chord. Now, there's a couple different ways you can dress that up. When you go to the C sharp here, you can change the upper chord to A. That, makes it a little more official, a little more kosher. Then when you get to B, you can do B minor. Then when you get to A, you have a couple options. You could either do D over A, right? Because A is part of a D chord. Or you could do a straight up A chord. Let's see what sounds best here. Oh, wait, I'm playing the wrong part. Hold on. I'm not a huge fan of the A there because it's too parallel. And this is a concept, from Renaissance and Baroque music of don't use parallel fifths too often. And I think that's valid. Although it's not as important for Irish music, just the aesthetic values and priorities. It doesn't matter as much. But it is kind of boring to go B with a perfect fifth, A with a perfect fifth, and then G with a perfect fifth. It's a little too heavy metal. So yeah, if you change it to B minor, D over A, then the G, then you get a little bit of intertwined. The lines get a little more intertwined. It's not quite as boring. So here we go. D. I'm doing A over C sharp, B minor, then D over A, before we resolve to this lovely G chord. Now, if I want to continue my, line, boom, 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 do, D. How about F sharp and then down to E? That's in the perfect position now, because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for our 8th chord of the phrase to be the dominant, which is A, and that's the perfect length, right? Because we're doing 2 beats per chord right now, and that gives us a, how does math work again? 8 times 2 is 16, which is 4 measures. Perfect. So it'll sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Just like Les Mis. So, right? By the way, every time I'm going through F sharp, I'm actually doing D over F sharp. I don't really like playing the 3 minor, like the F sharp minor. You certainly can. It'll give you a different sound. But yeah, so anytime I'm going quickly and I'm just saying F sharp, what I really mean is D over F sharp. So, all right, yeah, let's try it together. So here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. D, E minor, D over F sharp, G, D over F sharp, B minor, G, A, back to D. Now we're going down. Les Mis, right? B, A, G, F sharp, E, A. Let's repeat. Back to the beginning. We're climbing up. D, or E, F sharp, G, F sharp, B, G, A. Now we're going up. D, climbing down. C sharp, B, D over A, G, D over F sharp, E minor, A. Okay? Now we'll play it with the melody. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. One more time. Whoops. Well, my right hand didn't really cooperate there. Anyway, that's a wonderful little progression. Oh, and by the way, in case you're not a pianist and you're thinking, man, this is really unfair. This is discriminatory because I can't do all that stuff on my instrument. Well, let me. So here's an octave mandolin that I'm borrowing from a friend. So here's how you might do it on here. You don't necessarily need to play the full chords on all of these instruments. You can get away with just playing a couple of notes that imply the chord and then leaving the other strings to drone. So watch this. Right? Hoping I didn't blow out my microphone there. I'll do that in slow motion. Same bass line. Right? So, depending on your instrument, you can sort of choose your battles, right? You may not be playing the full triad. You may be playing the bass note, and maybe, especially on bouzouki or something like that, you might be picking like 2 or 3 strings to fret that fit the chord, and then leaving some of the other strings open for a drone. So anyway, that is the A section. Let's take a look at the B section. It's going to be very, very similar. So, let's see here. The melody goes up an octave, right? The difference here is the target notes are going to come at us much more quickly, right? This is like level 2 of one of those old alien invasion games, where the little spaceships are coming much more rapidly and you have to dart back and forth and be really, really efficient with your little blaster things. It's exactly like that. So anyway, check it out. Hear that on the downbeat? That's the G. Mi, sol, 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 la, mi, sol, mi, fa, na, na, na. Now, this is a little more forgiving because it doesn't hold out. It doesn't go da, and rather it goes ya, ba, da. So it does sort of have that feeling of, being a passing tone almost, an accented passing tone. But I'm gonna warn you away from using that as an excuse to play the wrong chord. So let's see. Let's see what happens if we use our old progression that goes D, E, F sharp, G. Let's see what happens. Ooh. Now again, it does kind of sound like you could have passed it off as a passing tone, but I'm going to go ahead and say, don't do that. It's much more character building to actually observe this note, sort of pay attention to it, and craft an accompaniment that actually fits. So, and then once you learn how to do that, then you can do whatever you want. How about that? What did I do? Instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, which we did in the first part, because the G fell on that third spot, that's where I wanted to put my G chord. So instead of going D, E, F sharp, G, I'm now going D, F sharp, G, A. So this is another stock pattern that you can just, you can spam the living what out of this pattern. You could do that all day for a lot of tunes. Like, check it out, Mountain Road. Etc., etc. Almost any tune. Right? Especially if you were to go 1, 3, 4, 5, 1, 6, 4, 5. Or even better, 1, 3, 4, 5, 1, 6, 2, 5. Just a little bit of jazz there with the 2. That will get you through 90% of reels. 1, 3, 4, 5, 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. And a heck of a lot of jazz tunes as well. So anyway, in this case, we need to use 1, 3, and when I say 3, I really mean 1 over 3, D over F sharp. I don't want to hear that F sharp minor. Although, let's hear what it sounds like. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Okay, sure, you can do that if you want. You can do F sharp minor. It's harder on the guitar, though. That's probably why I don't do it, because it's just annoying. It's just difficult. Anyway, so I'm doing D over F sharp. And then G and then A. Here's an example where we're prioritizing horizontal motion over vertical. There we're prioritizing the vertical component because, like we said, that G really sort of demands the left hand or the accompaniment follow. But then with the A chord, the melody there, you have a B, C sharp, D, E. It doesn't really indicate anything about A. It doesn't really signal A major. It's just that we're doing that A because of that voice leading thing we talked about earlier with the cadence, right? The authentic cadence. Do, ti, so do, ti, do. And it just sounds good. Even though the vertical component isn't spot on at that moment, it just sounds beautiful because you have these different lines that each have their motion, that each have their goal, and they're working together, even though they're sort of differing for a moment, but they arrive at the goal at this point. So, man, I love music. So anyway, I would advise repeat that exact same thing in the next two measures. And now let's see. I'm going to advise on measure 5. I'm going to advise a little trick where instead of starting this phrase on the D chord, which is the tonic, I want to go to the relative minor. We haven't done that yet. So all of our phrases thus far have started on D. So we had whatever it was, and then again on the B section we're doing da da. But now I want to do this deceptive cadence, right? So that G A usually goes to D. That's a 4-5-1, right? But a deceptive cadence, so that's an authentic cadence, 4-5-1. A deceptive cadence goes to the 6, okay? So instead of resolving to 1, the 5 chord will go up again and bring you to a 6. So, right? Really cool sound. I mean, very well-known sound in popular music, classical music, basically Western music. It's a staple of Western music. So I want to use this right at the downbeat of measure 5 of the B section. So check it out. Oh, sorry, wrong chord. It just, I don't know how to describe it. It lifts you up and it just holds you in this place and then lets you down. It's really a nice arsic. I believe that's the adjective. Yeah, it's a nice arsic motion. So D, F sharp, G, A, D, F sharp, G, A, B minor. Woo, right? So we're gonna let that hold out for a whole measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we have our target note again. That famous G, the world famous G. So right there, we cannot stay on B minor. Watch what happens if you stay on B minor. You sound like a dork. So right? Nah, it doesn't sound good. So you got to go right? You got to hit the G or the E minor under the G. If you forget everything else from this video, please remember that. Fourth tone of the scale, you have to match in your accompaniment.
You have to, or I'll fire you. Do you understand?
If it's a passing tone, if it's like 1 and 2, and if it's on any of the ands, do da, then I don't care. But especially if it's 1 and 2, if it's on those, you gotta match it, okay? I'm gonna be watching you. So here comes the B minor. Sorry. Now, what did I use there? Well, I used... What did I just do? Oh, I know what I did. So it's very similar to the ending we used from the A section. For the A section, we were doing the Les Mis, so we had done 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we did 5, 6, 7, 8. So those last 4, in the A section, we were doing G, F sharp, E, A. Because the G and the E minor are interchangeable, then G, F sharp, E, A, you can basically switch that out for E minor, F sharp, G, A. In other words, the F sharp and the A stay in the same place and you just switch the E and the G. So instead of, it becomes just climbing up instead of going down and then up. And the reason why I wanted to do it that way is because we already used the G chord a second ago, and so that's just the way it falls. So G chord, passing F sharp, there's the E, F sharp, G, and then that A chord that doesn't quite make sense vertically, but sounds good in context horizontally. All right, so I'll do the whole B section and I will say the names of the chords. Here we go. D, D over F sharp, G, A. Repeat, D, D over F sharp, G, A. Now B minor, hold, and then G, passing F sharp, E minor, D over F sharp, G, A. Right? Okie dokie. So I will definitely post those chords for you, make those available so you can practice those. If you have any questions about what we went over today, I know it was a fairly dense lesson. There was a lot of music theory involved. But if you have any questions, please send me a message or suggestions. I really want to hear your feedback. So, to finish off, let's just play the tune together one last time. But this time, you will play the accompaniment, and I will simply play the tune. So, yeah. Let me grab my whistle here. And you don't have to play exactly what we went over, but maybe try to listen for when those G's come in and make sure you hit the G or the E minor under those G's. All right? Or if you want to play exactly what we did, that's cool too. Here we go. A 1. So, I'll slow it down. A 1, 2, ready, go. All right, guys. Hope you had fun. Hope you learned a lot. I will see you next time with some more accompaniment.